Yeah, welcome to the first ever Format Podcast live show with call-in. That's right. Thank you all so much for helping us get here to this point. Really appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you're hitting that like button. And if you're not already subscribed, make sure you do that too. Definitely really excited about this opportunity tonight. Been working to put this together for a while. So again, thank you all so much for helping us to get here. But now let's talk some sports. So if you're not familiar with the show, normally we talk a lot of football and basketball. Those are our two major sports here at the Format Podcast. We talk college football, we talk NFL. Sometimes we talk soccer, we talk boxing, basketball, but normally football and basketball. But based on where we are in the calendar year and where we are in terms of sports seasons, tonight is going to pretty much be an all NBA episode. So let's get right to it. We're going to have an opportunity. We're going to have some good topics here, and then we're going to have an opportunity to go ahead and have you guys call in and have your first opportunity to really interact with me directly. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. So let's go ahead and do it, man. So first we're going to talk about what's on the thumbnail, right? And that's LeBron James, as we know, has been the face of the NBA for quite a long time, and he can't play forever. We know that too. But there's got to come a time when the NBA needs to have a new face. And so our first topic, we're going to discuss that. And I'd say LeBron has been the face of the NBA for probably about the past 15 years or so. And probably he really took over for sure when Kobe won his final championship in 2010. And then he made the move to Miami, not one, not two, not three, all that good stuff. And went to 4 straight Eastern Conference finals and 4 straight NBA finals and won 2 championships during that time. Now, you got some people that's going to tell you he's been the face of the league for the past 2 decades, pretty much the entire time that he's been in, but that's disingenuous. Now, has he been one of the biggest stars in the league for his entire time? Absolutely. But to say that he's been the face of the league for the whole time he's been in, well, that's just not the case. But I'm not really going to get into that debate. This is not what that topic is about, but he has been one of the top guys for a very long time now, and the top guy for probably about a decade and a half, last 15 years. So since he made that move to Miami, as I mentioned, that's pretty much when he took over and became the dominant face of the league, which to me, that's kind of funny, right? Because if LeBron James took over as the face of the league, how did he do that without actually taking over the league? That to me is a really interesting question, right? So you're the face of the league, but you're not dominating in terms of winning, because we can talk all day about everybody who ate on his watch. And that's, again, not really the focus of this topic, but that's part of it, right? But I know a lot of you might be arguing that he took over the league, but to say that, it really does ignore the facts, okay? Because let's look at this. Since LeBron's been in the league, well, let's not even say since he's been in the league, since he took over as the face of the league, like I said, maybe around 2011 after Kobe won his final title, we can say the Mavericks won a title, the Spurs won a title, the Warriors won 4 titles, the Raptors won a championship, the Nuggets won a title, all on his watch. That doesn't sound like he's taking over the league to me. But again, in terms of all the other things, being the face of the league, the most recognizable player, the most marketable player, the guy who kind of carries the league on his shoulders, the guy whose voice has the most weight and the things he says means the most to the league and all that. Yeah, I can't argue. That's been LeBron for the last 15 years. So he has been the face of the league as not arguably, as pretty much his biggest star and the guy that carried it. Now, if you want to say maybe you got an argument with Steph Curry, maybe you can say that in terms of all their battles on the court, Steph Curry being another guy that was super popular. I saw a graphic today, quick side note, I'm going to digress, that said when Steph Curry got drafted to Golden State 15 years ago, I didn't even realize he'd been in the league 15 years already, right? That's crazy. But anyway, I saw a graphic today saying that when Steph Curry got into the league 15 years ago, the Golden State Warriors were worth like $325 million. That was their valuation. Today, they're valued at $8.2 billion. That is crazy. That is insane. So definitely, I'm just, that shows you how valuable he has been to the league. But anyway, I think that would be the only argument you could make in terms of who's the face of the league. So back to LeBron. in fairness, he has really done a good job in many perspectives, right? He's never gotten in trouble. And normally that stuff doesn't matter to me because I'm all about it between the lines. But if you're the face of the league and you got to carry it, some things are important, right? LeBron has never gotten in any trouble. He's had an impeccable image. He's never done anything to really bring the league down. He's done tremendous amounts of good off the floor. And all that stuff, it really matters because let's say I'm the face of the league and I'm in a situation where um, I'm dominant on the floor, I'm winning like crazy, but I'm a dirtbag off the court and I'm getting in trouble, so on and so forth. They're not going to want to make me the face. That's problematic. Do you know how good you have to be on the floor to be able to even be in the argument for the face of the league if you get in problems off of it? And I think I mentioned this on another show that I did. I think that's probably why we see, even though so many players think that Kobe is the greatest of all time or the second greatest of all time, that's why we see such a concerted effort by the league and by the mainstream sports media to not put him up there and put LeBron above him. Not that LeBron hasn't had a tremendous career on the floor, but I think a big part of that is Kobe got into his issues in Eagle, Colorado with the sexual assault case and so on and so forth. Not going to get into the details of that. But the point is that stuff is not marketable. And it took him a while to get over that, but the fact that he's just such a tremendously high-level all-time great player really aided in that. But anyway, it can't be denied that LeBron has been great for the league in terms of what he's been able to do on and off the floor, the fact that he's never been in trouble, etc. Four-time champion. Now, don't get me started on the four-time champion because to me, four-time champion is great, but if you're a six-time finals loser, we can't just say four times champion and ignore the six times finals losses. Like, I don't know how people do that, but it is what it is. Anyway, none of that can be denied how great he's been, but he's in year 21 right now, and he just can't play for too much longer, right? That's the thought, right? But, maybe he's a cyborg and maybe he can go as long as he wants to. But in all seriousness, let's go back a little bit. When Michael Jordan retired from the NBA, we saw the league and its ratings take a huge hit because its biggest and greatest star of all time. Yes, I said it. He is the biggest and greatest star in NBA history. Go look at the ratings, go look at the numbers, all that is undeniable. To this day, Game 6 of the 98 finals against Utah is the most watched game in NBA history. That should tell you all you need to know for those of you who want to argue. Anyway, when he finally retired, the league took a huge hit because they did not do a good job of positioning that next guy. And that's a big problem. You have to be prepared for when your biggest star steps away, that you have another guy. For instance, Peyton Manning was one of the biggest stars in the NFL. I know it's apples to oranges because football is such a more of a team game and more marketed towards the team and less the individual, and the NBA is the opposite. But the point I'm trying to make here is Peyton Manning was such an incredible star in the NFL, and then he retired, and Tom Brady just kept on going. And Tom Brady was a megastar, kept on winning, so on and so forth, and now he stepped away, but guess what? Patrick Mahomes waiting in the wings, and now he's dominating. So the NFL has done a tremendous job in terms of having a star to step into that void when one guy leaves. And I'm not so sure that the NBA has positioned themselves to do that, right? And so the question now is, who's next up for face of the league? That's the question. Who's next up for face of the NBA? And I think that's a serious question because there's a lot of young talent in the league, but the question is, who has everything that it takes in one package to carry the league? Because that's a gigantic responsibility. And I don't know the answer to that question. That's why that's one of our topics today. But there's definitely some names, but to me, there doesn't seem to be one guy that's poised to grab it once LeBron is done. So one of my thoughts on that is, I'm curious to know, like, in terms of being the face of the league, is it someone who reaches out and grabs it, or is it a guy that kind of just has everything that takes and it comes to him naturally? That's what I'm not sure. Is it because you got some guys who want to go get it, but is wanting to be it enough? Or do you have to have that thing that it can just come to you? I don't know. Like Magic and Bird, they had that thing together. Now, their rivalry going back to college and the competition between the two of them, and obviously the two greatest franchises in history with the long-term rivalry and all that, that was perfect. Black versus white, East versus West, Showtime versus blue collar. everything just fell perfectly into place. The way the guys played, their tremendous skill levels, all that worked. And together, those guys were the face of the league. Then Jordan came and he took over, so on and so forth, right? So it all just seemed to just work. Like they didn't have to reach out and take it because those guys just seem to have it, right? So I think that there's about 5 real candidates, in my opinion, right now. Who knows who may come in the future, but for right now, let's say LeBron decides to retire after this year. I don't think he's going to. He hasn't given any indication of that. But there's about 5 guys for me. And I say those 5 guys are Anthony Edwards from Minnesota, Luka Doncic, Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, and Jason Tatum. And to be honest, I'm not particularly excited about any of them in terms of being the face of the league. And we'll kind of go through and talk about it. So let's start with Anthony Edwards. That's the first guy named. He's an absolute beast on the floor, right? He's explosive offensively to the point that, and I think this is ridiculous, but some people, Stephen A. Smith, that's you, have actually compared him to Michael Jordan. I can't see that. But what I like about him is he seems to have a desire to want to get out and really play and compete. He competes on the offensive end. Like he's got that dog, coincidence, University of Georgia Bulldog, right? But he's got that dog in him. Also, he wants to defend, and that's a rarity in the modern NBA, that he really wants to defend and D up guys. So that's big. He looks like he's just a real competitor, which again, to me is a rarity in this era of the NBA, especially when guys are all so friendly and guys grew up together, playing together, AAU, so on and so forth, super team, teaming up, all that stuff. Now, I know I come from a different generation, so I can't really understand what that's about in terms of competition, but so be it. But Anthony Edwards, he seems like a guy that's poised to possibly be in that race for face of the league. Next up, Luka. I saw somebody in the chat. Shout out Sarah Sloot. I saw her say Luka is a monster stat stuffer. But my problem with Luka, all those stats he's getting, I think he's averaging 34, 9, and 8 this year. And that's crazy. But to me, it doesn't really transfer to wins. Like Luka walked into the league being a bucket. He's getting busy. And again, to me, that might be testament to the fact that the way the game is played, all the spread floors, deep lack of defense, and tons of threes. But Luka is a problem. He can score, but he doesn't really know how to play without the ball. So that's something different. He's been to the Western Conference Finals once, and that's something he's got to make consistent, further deep runs in the playoffs. And because to me, the most important part of being the face of the league is winning. You have to be in a position where you can win. That's major. You can't just be out here putting up big numbers and not doing anything. And to me, that's super important. Like even with Jordan, he wasn't winning early, but his numbers were so astronomical and so crazy. And the stuff that he was doing was so beyond the pale that people were like, yo, this guy is real, real different. And if you look, after 86, he started consistently getting further and further in the playoffs. And once he got to the top of the mountain, and everyone knows this, there was no getting him down from there unless he decided to step away. But yeah, Luka, to me, he's got to really do a better job of figuring out how to play without the basketball. And once he can do that and really maximize the abilities of his teammates, I think he will be better and a much more dangerous player. And that's going to lead to more winning for his team. And so, again, winning is such a major part to me of being the face of the league. You got to have that. Now, here's one that could be the guy, and that's Victor Wembanyama. Wemby. He's a rookie, most likely going to be rookie of the year this year, and he's the most hyped prospect maybe ever. And it's hyped to the point that I actually heard, I think it was Chris Broussard of the Odd Couple, him and Rob Parker were discussing Wembanyama before he came into the league and started playing. And I think they said that the expectations were so high for him that if he became Hakeem Olajuwon at some point in his career, that it would be a disappointment. To me, that was crazy. I thought that was crazy and crazy disrespectful because to me, I think Dream is easily one of the top 5 players of all time. He's so incredible as a two-way player. His skill level was so elite. But this isn't about Dream. This is about Wembanyama. And so far, in fairness, Wembanyama's living up to the hype. So he's averaging 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists per game, 3 blocks per game, leading the league in blocks per game. And that's real interesting because you don't often in this day and age see guys averaging 3+ blocks per game. So definitely super impressed with that. And the wild thing, he's putting up those numbers on only 28 minutes per game. And I think that is amazing. So you got Luka on, not Luka, I'm sorry, you got Wembanyama on a minutes restriction. I guess that's just the way the Spurs training team does it. And he's putting up those kind of numbers. And so San Antonio is a small media market, but he's with an organization that really seems to know how to deal with international players, extremely well. And they got the support system for him. So it seems like everything is just smooth for him so far. Now, every rookie runs into difficulties at some point. Every young player has to deal with some they have to deal with some obstacles and fight through those. And that's part of growing pains and part of becoming great, right? Even LeBron had to do it, Mike had to do it, so on and so forth. So that's just part of the thing. But you look at Wembanyama, and I think one of the biggest things for me too is that Wembanyama, he doesn't have a language barrier. And I think a lot of times when you're dealing with international players, language barriers, very heavy accents, unfortunately, like this is America, Jack. Shout out John Amos. But yeah, when you have a thick accent or you have a language barrier, it makes it really difficult for American fans to put their arms around you. And realistically, American fans, they want to support their own. And I get that. So it's very hard for an international player to be the face of the league. We've never seen that before. So here's an example, though, of how crazy Wemby is, right? I think it was Friday night, he became the youngest player in NBA history to have a 5x5 game. And that's 5 or more of something in 5 major statistical categories. He had 27 points, 10 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals, and 5 blocks. And he did that all in only 31 minutes. That's crazy. So Wembanyama, he is showing the talent. He's showing the skill. He seems to have the dog. He seems to have a personality. He doesn't have a language barrier. And so you got all these things. So he might be like the first international player to get that done. He's got to stay healthy, of course. Thus far, he hasn't seemed to have fallen prey to what a lot of, I want to say big men fall prey to, but I don't know. He's like a tall, small forward to me because he's so slim. But, let's hope that he continues to be able to play at this level and not have any lower body extremity issues. So, yeah. Wembanyama, he might be that guy. Next up, you got Nikola Jokic, arguably the best player in the league. He's averaging 26, 12, and 9 on the season. He is virtually unguardable in the modern NBA. Now, you got people out there talking about, I had somebody I went to school with, and he told me, journalism school, and he said to me, the modern NBA is the best big man era ever. I was like, are you crazy? Like, what are you talking about? So I guess he's saying because of Embiid and Jokic and what they can do, but I mean, that's just 2 bigs out of the whole league. But anyway, totally different era, not the time or the topic for this argument. But the point I'm trying to make is you look at a guy like Jokic and he's getting busy. He is 2-time former MVP. He is great. He's the defending champ. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, he's virtually unguardable, except when he's playing against Joel Embiid. I think Embiid just has his number. He gets destroyed when he plays against Embiid, and it's crazy. But I don't think he can ever be the face of the league. First and foremost, like I said, Americans just don't really embrace foreign-born athletes the way they embrace their own. And we get that because I'm sure if you're an American athlete, unless you're just that high of a level, it's hard to be embraced against someone's own native athlete when you go overseas. It's just one of those things. But yeah, we just don't do that here, no matter how good they are. And also, Jokic, he doesn't seem to want that type of notoriety. He doesn't want that attention or that responsibility of being the face of the NBA. Like, that's not what Jokic is into. We heard him say recently, probably a couple months ago, that his dream is when he's done playing, that he can just, get rid of his cell phone, and so nobody's got to bother him, right? And so he just wants to do his thing. And also he speaks English well, but there seems to be a bit of a language barrier. I don't know if he might be a really funny guy when he speaks Serbian, right? He might be a really funny guy, but we don't know. And that kind of makes it a little more difficult for us to really see his personality. And that's an important part of it too, personality. It's not just about how good you are between the lines, even though, of course, that's the most important part. Finally, the last guy I mentioned, you got Jason Tatum. And he seems to have a desire to be the face of the league. He wants it. And I think he said something recently about it, just kind of being there for the taking. He's got to reach out and get it. But for me, and I'm a Celtics fan, I'm going to tell you, there just seems like there's something missing with Tatum. And I don't know what it is. To me, he doesn't seem like he's got a whole ton of personality. And when you watch him play, his game is super smooth, right? But he never feels like he's in that killer mode. Now, when he gets hot and he goes off, he's one of the most dangerous players in the league, and he can do that. But I never get the feeling that he's a guy who will get mad and just take over, right? Now, LeBron James kind of gets the rap of not being that guy, but I watched him, I want to say in 2012 against the Celtics in the playoffs, that 45-point masterpiece. You could tell he was mad from the beginning. He just came in there. And I think if the Celtics had won that game, they'd have won the series, and LeBron knew it was up to him. He just went in there. I think he finished with like 45 and 15. It was crazy. And he just destroyed the Celtics, absolutely destroyed them, dominated. And he was mad, and you could see it. And so he went into takeover mode. And I don't know if that's something Tatum has. I'm really not sure. I don't think he does. He's got the skills to do it, but I don't know if he has the mentality to do it. And I think to be the face of the league, you got to be able to do that. And so when you talk about these guys, you talk about Tatum, you talk about Ant Edwards, you talk about Jokic, you talk about Wembanyama, you talk about Luka. I don't see any one of those guys that has it all in the one package that is necessary to take over the league. I just don't see it. So, you know, I've loved the NBA for a long time. Now, I've said it before, it's a lot harder to watch now just because of the way the game is played and the lack of defense and all that. And I mean, we saw that in the most recent All-Star game. It's tough, but I don't want to see the NBA end up right back in the same spot that it was 20 years ago when MJ hung it up for good. That's just not something I want to see. So right now, if I got anybody that wants to call in, I'm going to go ahead and open up the phone lines. You can do that. The phone number is 904-219-8264, 904-219-8264. You go ahead, give me a call, and give me your thoughts on this. And if we don't, then we'll get back to it and move on to the next topic. Okay, so looks like we're not going to be taking any calls on that. That's cool. First time isn't always a charm, right? But let's go on and get to the next topic. And the next topic is going to be talking about Kevin Durant and Charles Barkley. And so recently, Charles Barkley had some comments to make about Kevin Durant not being a leader, and I thought this was real interesting, and I definitely wanted to touch on this. So I'm going to play the sound, and then we'll get back and talk about that. So first, it's going to be Charles Barkley's comments on it, and then you're going to hear Kevin Durant respond to those comments on his show, The Boardroom. So let's check that out, and then we'll come back.
No disrespect to Kevin. Kevin's a follower. He's not a leader. He's proven that on all his stops. Booker's a hell of a player also. I think he's going to have to take it. Man, Kevin's a hell of a bad about him, but I say the same thing with Boston. That's a step forward. And for me, for Phoenix to be successful, it has to be Booker.
Why do you think people in the media think you're not a good leader or that you're not a leader?
I'm not as charismatic as my peers. I don't have a personality that's like fit for TV like my peers. And a lot of those stories of what we talk about don't get spoken about in the media. And that's just really what it is. It's like you got to sell what you're doing as well. And I haven't sold it enough, you know, and I feel like I don't feel like I need to. I don't feel like I want people to call me a leader, but I also don't want people to say I'm not one either. You know what I'm saying? Because they don't see what goes on behind the scenes or what I talk about or my intentions or the relationships that I built with my teammates and support staff. But when guys like that say that, I just got to chalk it up to them just not being aware of what goes on instead of like wanting to, you know, push a narrative for myself, maybe not a narrative, or tell the truth for myself. Or expose the truth on how great of a leader I am. I don't feel like it's necessary. I'll just chalk it up to those guys not being aware of who I am.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was real interesting. If you listen to the sound, and I see my man Mel from Man Down Sports just popped up in the chat. Shout out Mel, thanks for everything, man. Definitely glad you're here. But back to it. So I think that Barkley just tells it how it is, and some people, of course, you know what they're gonna say. Oh, he's just an old head hater. This, that, and the third. Cool. Old head hater. That's code for I'm too lazy to think of a proper response. So I'm gonna just say that because I don't have anything better to say. But I definitely agree with Charles Barkley on this. And the fact is, KD isn't a leader, and he's told us on multiple occasions that he's not a leader. For instance, check this out. This is KD when he joined the Golden State Warriors in 2017. Steph Curry is the face of the franchise, and that helps me out because I don't have to. I don't want to have to be the leader. I'm not a leader. I'm bad at saying, stand behind me and follow me. Now, that's cool, right? If you're KD, you can say, man, listen, that was 2017. That was, 7 years ago. I've grown a lot as a person and as a player and so on and so forth. And I totally get all that, right? And so you got a situation where at that point, maybe he hadn't learned to be a leader yet. He got with Draymond in Golden State and with Steph, and he saw some of the things that it took to be a leader. I don't know, but from what I've seen in his career, I don't think that he's a leader. Think about this. He's always told us he's not. He said he's just a hooper, right? His focus is going out and mastering his craft and being the best basketball player that he can be. And that's what he cares about, mastering his craft and his game. So my thing is this. If you heard in the comment, how is he arguing that he's a leader when in the same clip, he's saying that he's not a leader, but he just doesn't want someone to say it? Does that sound like it makes sense to you? There we go, Sarah. That doesn't sound like a leader. I don't want to not be called a leader. That's not confident. And part of being a leader is confidence. You got to have that, right? You got to be able to say exactly what he told us he didn't want is get behind me and I'll lead you, right? So I don't understand, like, why is this even an issue? KD, if you're not a leader, that's cool. Everybody's not built to be one. Now, there are certain things that some people are natural leaders. Some people can be taught to be leaders. There are various schools in the military that teach people how to be leaders or teach people traits of leadership that they can employ so that they can improve in their leadership. But for the most part, the greatest leaders are born. You can be taught, but the greatest leaders are born. And if we look through our history, we can see that. I'm not going to get into a history lesson, even though I'm a history buff. But it doesn't make any sense that KD would even be arguing this, right? Then you have the people. This is what gets me. So obviously these comments were big, but then you have from both of them, from Barkley and from Kevin Durant, but you got people like Gilbert Arenas, big voices in the basketball space, and they try to make a false equivalency. What do I mean by a false equivalency? They try to make an analogy that doesn't work. For instance, Gilbert Arenas, he basically attacked Charles Barkley saying, hey, what are you doing at Kevin Durant? Look at your career. You weren't a leader either. So the first thing, of course, is they're going to say you never won anything. But Barkley, he's well-versed in dealing with that. He's come out many times, said, listen, I never won. I can accept that, right? He did everything he could do to win, but he just couldn't get there, as many people in Michael Jordan's era just couldn't get there. So the fact is this, Gilbert Arenas, he was dead wrong on that. So let's break it down a little bit. Charles Barkley was drafted in 1984, same draft class as Michael Jordan, Hakeem Olajuwon, and those guys. The difference is when those guys went to their teams, they were immediately the man. Charles Barkley, if you remember, drafted to the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's look back and think, who was on that team when Charles Barkley got there? Oh, Dr. J, top 20 player all time. Oh, Moses Malone, top 20 player all time. So two of the best who ever did it were already on that team. Who was Charles Barkley supposed to come in and lead? You tell me. I'll wait. Exactly. So Barkley comes in, Dr. J and Moses Malone are already there. First of all, most rookies aren't equipped to be the leader as is. Furthermore, you got two all-time greats there, so he didn't have to be that. So obviously, I think after the 87 season, Dr. J retires and Moses Malone gets traded. So the team is Charles Barkley's, and the team was not very good. Now, if you look at that point, by 87, Boston Celtics are playing in their last NBA finals. They get beat by the Lakers in 87. And then in 88, you see the Detroit Pistons in the Eastern Conference, the bad boys, finally overcome the Celtics and end up in the finals, right? See, so back in the day, a lot of fans nowadays think that you just build a team and you immediately get to the finals and you immediately start competing for championships. No, back in the day in the East, there was a pecking order, right? So in the early 80s, you had the Sixers and the Celtics battling for supremacy. And then by 84, 85, 86, 87, the Celtics were the dominant team. And then after, like I just told you, after 87, after 87, you saw the Celtics finally succumb to age, injury, and a better team. And that was the Detroit Pistons, who then took over, did their thing. They went to 3 straight finals, won 2 championships. And then, as we saw in The Last Dance, or if you know anything about basketball, at that point, Michael Jordan and the Bulls are climbing the hill. And by 91, they finally knock off the Pistons, get to the championship, win it, and they're sitting up there. So the point is, at that point, nobody can even remember, for the most part, who were on those 76ers teams with Charles Barkley. What was he supposed to do? Who was he supposed to eat? Who was he supposed to beat? I'm sorry. Yeah, Dr. J. What up, TB? Dr. J was Michael Jordan before Michael Jordan. Absolutely. Absolutely. And anybody who knows basketball could see that. But yeah, who was Charles Barkley supposed to lead on those Sixers teams, and who are they supposed to beat? That's why it frustrates me when people with big voices in the sports media are disingenuous. So Gilbert Arenas is saying this. Why is he saying this? Because the people who are listening don't know what they're listening to. That's what that is, real talk. Now, by going into the 92 season, Charles Barkley gets traded from Philadelphia to the 76ers. I'm sorry, from Philadelphia to the Phoenix Suns. Now, the Phoenix Suns, here's Gilbert Arenas' other argument. The Suns have been winning 50-plus games a year for like the previous 3 or 4 years. And that's true. But guess what? They didn't have, what were they missing? Oh, a leader. So Charles Barkley gets there, immediately becomes a leader of that team, and immediately that team goes to the finals. And they lose in the finals. And I'm not the guy that's going to make excuses for losing in the finals, because I don't do it for LeBron, so I can't do it with Barkley. However, there is a little bit of context. Who did they play in the finals? Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls on the 3rd championship of their first three-peat. Like I told you earlier, when Michael Jordan hit the top of that mountain, nobody was going to knock him off. So the point I'm trying to make here is, up until this point, we see where Barkley had the opportunity to be a leader. He was a leader, and he was an effective leader. Now, people then say, they love to throw this at Barkley. Oh, well, at the end of your career, you were just a ring chaser. You ran to Houston and you tried to make a super team with Clyde and Dream, and then with Scottie and Dream. Well, no, that's not how it happened. Do your research. He actually got traded to Houston, and he didn't even know that was happening. Okay. Hersey Hawkins. Okay. All right. That's fair. But that Hersey Hawkins, going back real quick, when I asked the question of who was on those 76ers team, most of us can't remember. Hersey Hawkins was very good, outstanding shooter. He could score, but he wasn't a guy that's going to get you over the top with Charles Barkley against, all those other great teams in the East that we talked about. And by the way, even though they never got to a finals until 94, the New York Knicks were a second-tier team, and they were winning, I think in 92, they won like 60 games with Pat Riley. So, let's look at it that way. But yeah, I think the point is, Charles Barkley was a leader, and Gilbert Arenas is being disingenuous when he's saying that Barkley was not. So that's not cool. So Barkley ends up in Houston, and he gets traded, and no, he wasn't the leader there, right? If you want to say he was a leader, but Dream was a leader because that was his team, and he had previously led him to 2 championships. So it's another example of just a false narrative to try and prove something that doesn't stand up. But the whole point is getting back to Kevin Durant. This is why I absolutely agree with Charles Barkley that Kevin Durant is not a leader. He's shown us he's not a leader. He's told us he's not a leader. Because let's think about this. I get it. Grown men are grown men. But if Kevin Durant was truly a leader, when he was in Brooklyn, he would have taken control of that team. But he's a guy that just wants to hoop. He doesn't want to do the other things that come with being a leader. And I'm not mad at that. If that's you and that's your personality and you just want to play ball and master that craft, that's cool. No problem at all. But the fact is, you can't get mad when somebody says you're not a leader, because you're not. All right. Go ahead and right now I'll open up the phone lines. I'll take a couple calls if anybody wants to call in with that and give their thoughts on Charles Barkley's comments about Kevin Durant not being a leader. You can call in at 904-219-8264. 904 219-8264. Give me a shout, and if not, then we'll get on to the next topic. All right, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna leave this up, but I'm gonna move on to the next topic. If you wanna call in, go ahead and call in and just say where you calling from, what's your name. And by the way, anybody who calls in, just a couple ground rules: no profanity, no racial slurs, nothing like that. We want to keep it nice, and we want to be the type of show where if you're listening to the pod in your car, or you're listening to the show in your car and your kids are in there, you don't have to change the channel. So let's keep it respectful and let's keep it relatively clean. All right. But yeah, I'm gonna get on to the next topic, and this one was kind of interesting to me. Okay, here we go. We got one. Let's go ahead and take that. 336, you're in the mix. What's going on?
What's going on? It's Mel.
Mel, this is my main man, Mel. Man Down Podcast. What you got for us, Mel?
No, I slightly disagree with your take on the league. The part I do agree with is that Barkley was a leader.
Okay. You say you disagreed with that?
Too. I mean, because if you just go to the basic definition, leader is just a person that leads. You know what I mean? So I think the question here is Kevin Durant a good leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Barkley saying he's not a leader. Gold in the Olympics.
Okay, I lost you. Say that again. Barkley saying he's not a leader. What was that?
Yeah, Barkley saying he's not a leader is, it don't really make sense because he's led several teams. I mean, you can go back to the last team that won the gold in the Olympics. Kevin Durant led that team. He led the OKC Thunder team to the finals against Miami Heat. To fight him for the Golden State statement that he made is because if you remember, as soon as he went to Golden State, the media had a lot of negative things to say, and it was almost like he was trying to be divisive and
So let me ask you. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, there was the way they was asking him those questions was the difference between him and Steph and Clay by asking him who is it your team now that you're here? Whose team is it? Who leads this team? Who takes the who does X, Y, and Z? How y'all gonna do this? Right? And then you had Clay make that comment. I'm not taking less shots. Right? So everything was about dividing them, and he was trying to say the least divisive thing by deferring in that nod.
So let me push back on that a little bit. As someone who has been worked as a journalist and been in those post game presses and asked those kind of questions, my thing is, I don't want to be rude to anybody, but that's a stupid question to ask a guy who just walked into the franchise. Whose team is it? Like, I hear what you're saying. If you're asking that question, you are deliberately trying to, you're trying to look for some smoke to make something and get a hot sound bite or whatever it is, because that's ridiculous. If you cover that team, either team who is playing, that's Steph's team.
Hello?
Yeah, hello?
Yeah. It was going in and out. No. And they was doing it in the media. They was doing it on ESPN. Like this is the type of stuff they was talking about. You can go back to your memory about those debates. These are the type of debates they would have on ESPN constantly. Whose team is who's going to take the last shot? Who's going to take less? I mean, he made that quote, and I'm pretty sure he wish he could have that opportunity back, not to say it because now it's coming to bite him back in the butt. The last point I make is the Brooklyn situation when you said that he would have took control of that situation.
Mm-hmm.
As far as basketball and all of that stuff, he was still the leader there. The only thing that people feel like he should have done different is force somebody to get a vaccination, and good and well that ain't gonna go well with no grown man.
Well, no, you can't do that.
Why even try to do that?
Right.
Yeah, right. So I mean, that's the only mistake he made with the leadership. And Harden said he wanted to trade. Okay, cool. You want to trade? Cool. But that's just his personality. But to say he's not a leader, I think that's a little bit crazy for Barkley to say. I think he should say, I don't think he leads well, and then there will be more of a accurate equivalency.
Hello? Okay, there we go.
Why Barkley was a leader, the first step to leadership in sport is for you to show up and lead by example. And
Mhm.
part of that, the camp in shape and staying in shape for your whole career, which Barkley did not do. So he failed the first step of leadership.
Okay. So I just looked up leadership here, and leadership is the action of leading a group of people or an organization. And quick side note, when I was growing up, they always said don't use the word in the definition. That seems to happen all the time now. So I don't know what's the deal with definitions now. But anyway, so are you looking at leadership as just being the best player on a team?
Say again?
Are you looking at leadership as just being the best player on the team? Because to me, I'm seeing leadership as being more than that, not just being the guy who scores the most points or leads the team in the statistical categories to winning. I think there's more to it than that. What is your thoughts on that? Because I think that's where KD is coming up short for me.
Nah, leadership has not been the best player on the team. Leadership is just leading. It's always a
Hello? I think I lost you again.
team.
Okay, you went out. But let's do this. Give me a call back if you get a chance. I'm gonna move on to the next topic. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate it. You going in and out. All right, but no, that I kind of feel where Mel is coming from on that. I don't agree with him completely, because now maybe I'm the type of guy that's looking for a leader to be more aggressive and maybe more vocal in the vein of a Kobe or a Mike or even a Magic or a Bird. Now everybody's not going to lead the same way. I totally get it, but I just think that I needed to see more from KD. And again, even if Mel was right, here's the problem. KD, in talking about it, is saying in the same quote that he is a leader and people don't know because they're not there to see what he's doing to lead, but that he's not a leader and he just doesn't like people saying it. So to me, none of that adds up, but it is what it is. All right, let's move on to the next topic. This one was kind of interesting to me. So I'm gonna start it off by asking a question. Did Dame Lillard diss Giannis? That's the question, right? And so I guess you're wondering why I asked that. So I think it was over All-Star weekend. He got asked a question, and here was Dame Lillard's response.
If you could create your own starting five, what's your team?
It would be me, LeBron, Steph, Kevin Durant, and I'm going to go with Bam Adebayo.
That's a tough.
So, I mean, did y'all hear that? Matter of fact, I'm going to play it again because I thought that was crazy.
If you could create your own starting five, what's your team?
It would be me, LeBron, Steph, Kevin Durant, and I'm going to go with Bam Adebayo.
That's a tough.
So, I think that's wild right there. So let's talk about it. Dame Lillard, over All-Star weekend, he became the 3-point champion and he became the All-Star MVP. First guy since Michael Jordan to win All-Star Game MVP and another award at the All-Star weekend since, I guess, 88, when Michael Jordan won All-Star Game MVP and Slam Dunk champion. So Dame Lillard, he's an elite scorer. We know how good he is. He's one of the best players in Portland Trailblazers history. I guess a lot of people would say he's the best player in Trailblazers history. Totally disagree. I think it's Clyde Drexler, and maybe you could make an argument for Bill Walton, but that's another story. I think I did a show on that a while back. You could probably check the channel. But yeah, he's one of the best players, easily top 3 in Blazers history. So outstanding team. So as you heard there, he got asked the question of who's his dream 5 he could play with, and I want to assume that they were talking about guys in the league now. So he says himself, Steph, LeBron, KD, and Bam Adebayo. So my first question on this is, I guess this positionless basketball thing is a real thing, huh? I don't get it, man. So obviously I came up in an era where basketball had positions: point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, center. Those positions were defined and generally had defined roles, right? Now you had from time to time the super special player who could play multiple roles because they had the requisite size and skill set to do different things on the floor. And, I had no problem with that. I thought it was pretty cool. But this whole positionless basketball, to me, that gets away from, that's like, what's the old saying? Jack of all trades, master of none. And so I think, You should focus on one thing and master it. But guys, too many guys want to be trying to do everything, and I'm not really a proponent of that. So when I make starting fives, like all-time starting fives or whatever, I look for actual positions to fit, to actually create matchup problems against teams that don't have them. And when I say that, I make it up to say, I put teams together to say, okay, this is who I want running my point. This is who I want in my shooting guard, my small forward, my power forward, my center. For instance, if I had to make an all-time starting five, I thought about this ad nauseum, and I always pretty much come up with the same all-time starting five. And obviously, providing everybody's healthy, I got Magic at the point, Michael Jordan at the shooting guard, Larry Bird at the small forward, Tim Duncan or Karl Malone, that's a toss-up at the power forward, and Hakeem Olajuwon at the five. I don't see any team beating that team. Now, I'm sure somebody could, have their arguments, but when that team is healthy, they can move the ball, they can shoot the ball, they can defend the ball on the perimeter and on the wing. They have, arguably the best court vision ever between Bird and Magic. So, and you got a bunch of guys that know how to play and be effective without the basketball. You have rebounding, you have rim protection. I don't see how you lose, but that's me. That's, I guess, my old head way of looking at the game, right? And so I think that's how you should put a team together. So this lineup Dame created, I don't get it. It has no center. It has LeBron out of position at power forward. No matter what they try to say and tell you that he's playing, he's never really a power forward. That's just not LeBron, despite his size and strength and explosiveness. He's got 2 point guards who are really just small shooting guards and a big small forward in Bam Adebayo at center. How does that work? How does that work? I guess this is just guys that you just want to play with, not guys you're trying to win with. I don't know. There's questions, right? Can LeBron play off the ball? Can Dame Lillard successfully play off the ball, right? We know KD can play off the ball. We know that Steph could play off the ball. But, it's a weird lineup that he put together. And here's another question for me. I'm really trying to figure this out. What is this Bam Adebayo love? I don't understand it at all. Seriously, I can't figure out. Like, I've watched the guy play. I've looked at his numbers. I've seriously tried to figure. He's a multiple-time All-Star now, and I cannot figure it out. He doesn't have a real position. And what is the best part of Bam Adebayo's game? Like, what is it? What does he do exceptionally well? And I don't know. He's okay on defense. I don't think he's a lockdown defender. He's not a shot blocker, even though he's 6'10". He's not locked down on the wing. He's not a three-point shooter. He doesn't shoot many. And I think this season he's less than 10% from three. So he's not a threat to stretch the floor as a quote-unquote big. I just don't get it. What is it with Bam Adebayo? Is he extremely coachable? Does he play extremely hard? I'm sure there's guys like that in the league, but nobody talks about them the way they talk about Bam. Is it because he has a catchy nickname, Bam? I don't know. I don't know. I'm realistic. Check this. I call him Bum Adebayo. It's probably unprofessional to call him. Call somebody a name, but I'm just not impressed with this dude. Never have been, and I can't understand why everybody is so enamored with him. But that's me. But the bigger question is, why would Dame leave off his teammate Giannis, who is one of the best players in the league right now, top 5 easy? Why would you do that? Is he seeing a lot of the flaws in Giannis's game now that he's up close and personal, practicing with him every day and playing games night in, night out? Is it not matching up with what he thought he was going to get when he came to Milwaukee? So, again, another old saying, grass is not always greener on the other side. So Dame was adamant about getting out of there. I guess he thought he was going to push and get to Miami, but he ends up in Milwaukee. And personally, when that trade happened, I thought that was going to be a great situation because you have a floor stretching shooter like Dame. Now, his scoring is going to go down because he's not going to get every shot, but you have a floor stretching shooter like Dame and a guy like Giannis who loves to attack and try to get downhill. So I thought that could be a perfect match in terms of them guys playing together. But clearly I was wrong. Not that they're terrible, but it doesn't seem to mesh properly. And could it be that Dame is seeing Giannis's offensive deficiencies? Now, here's the thing. Giannis just he lacks a toolkit, right? He lacks an offensive toolkit, and no one is ever going to knock Giannis's work ethic. But it looks like there's just some parts of his game that there's just some parts of his game that just are never going to improve. And I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the deal with that? Why can't he get any better? Is it because he started playing ball so late? Like, I don't know. But regardless, Giannis, I don't know. Dame not naming Giannis as one of the guys that he wants to play with, even if he was lying, like you say Giannis, like I didn't think that was cool at all. So we know that Dame excels in the pick and roll. So now you ask, okay, what's up with the coaching? Like I think Adrian Griffin before. Now you got Glenn the consultant, Doc Rivers, shout out Man Down Podcast, Glenn the consultant. But in all seriousness, where's the coaching? Because if it's me, I'm trying to make these dudes the modern day Stockton and Malone. Now we know Giannis is not going to be the guy who's going to pick and pop like Malone did later in his career. But again, if Giannis sets the pick and then rolls, quickly towards the basket, he's in position for an ollie. He's in position for a pocket pass, a bounce pass. We know Dame can make those. And Giannis is going to finish at the rim or get fouled. Or he clears it out so that Dame can pull up right there. I mean, you can do the pick and roll from outside three, top of the key. I mean, that's a good position for those guys to be in. And so if I'm coaching the Bucks, I'm watching like every variation of the pick and roll that John Stockton and Karl Malone did. And I'm trying to incorporate that into my playbook and having these guys watch the tape too, because that's what Dame is great at. And you got a guy like Giannis who can take advantage of that going downhill. Again, he's not going to do the pick and pop, not with regularity, but the pick and roll could work. So I don't understand like what's the issue here. And so, yeah, if you're Dame, why would you not at least lie and say Giannis, right? That's your teammate. Do you want to start causing issues and difficulties between yourself and Giannis, the two best players on the team? Do you want to do that? Or are you trying to put yourself in a position to maybe force and facilitate another trade and end up in Miami where you wanted to be from the beginning? Who knows? But here's a question. In what world, I'm getting back to this again because I just don't get it. In what world would you take Bam Adebayo over Giannis? Like, what does Bam do better than Giannis? Shoot the mid-range. I think that's about it. He's not a better defender. He's not a better rebounder. He's not a better scorer. He's not a better passer. Like, what does he do better than Giannis? In what world would you take Bam over Giannis? I don't get it. I can't understand it. So I guess you have to wonder, how does something like that affect Dame and Giannis, their relationship going forward? Do we start seeing some fractures in that relationship? Does it cause problems? Does Dame try to force his way out of there this offseason? I guess they got to, unless they win a championship, right? How does Glenn the consultant, a.k.a. Doc Rivers, how does he work this out? How does, because he's supposed to be a guy that's really good in terms of managing people and really massaging egos and stuff like that. Obviously, we know he's not the greatest in X's and O's because we've seen all these playoff flameouts. But that's really the question. How is that going to work out? And the thing is, Giannis recently stated again, because I guess he was asked about it, and he said unequivocally, this is Dame's team. So Giannis is not allowing his ego to get in the way, at least not from what he says. He may be playing differently. I haven't watched a ton of Bucks games this year, but at least from what he says, he's not allowing his ego to get in the way. He wants Dame to know that this is your team. When it comes down to it, you are going to be the guy that's going to take us home. And so, he's trying to ingratiate Dame and welcome Dame and make Dame feel like this is it. But for some reason, it just doesn't seem to be working. And I just thought that was so weird, a situation where Dame is asked to name his five and his teammate there, who's one of the best players in the league, he doesn't name him. That doesn't make any sense to me, even if Dame had to lie. So I'm going to go ahead here and open up the phone lines again. And call in right now. Number is 904-219-8264. 904-219-8264. If you got a comment on that, you can go ahead and give us a call. And I'm going to go ahead at this point and move on to the next topic. And if you want to call in, go ahead and do that, and we'll talk about it. All right, so this is going to be the last topic, and I'm a bit of a history buff. I think I mentioned that earlier, whether it's history in sports or military history or world history or what have you. I love history. And so I'm going to end this out with a historical NBA topic. So I'm not going to get into the whole GOAT debate thing, but this is interesting because one of the things that I tend to hear is that when you talk about LeBron James, Michael Jordan, the GOAT debate, they talk about, who they had to play, and Mike didn't do anything without Scottie, which is true, but Scottie also didn't do anything without Mike. Different story. But one of the biggest things that I've heard is Michael Jordan couldn't get past the Pistons until they got old. Okay, and I guess that's something that the LeBron fans use to try and downgrade Mike's achievements in getting past one of the better championship teams in all of history, to go on and finally capture his first title. And so, we saw, I think, 3 straight years the Pistons eliminated the Bulls in the Eastern Conference playoffs, with the Bulls getting successfully further each time, and then finally Jordan and the Bulls getting over the hump. And quick note. Michael Jordan didn't run from the Bulls and super team up with anyone else. He got back in the gym. He got better. He got stronger. He said, I got to beat these guys. He pushed his teammates to get better and get stronger, and they eventually got over the hump. But, a different era and different way people went about things, and so be it. Not taking shots at anybody, but it is what it is. Anyway, so the narrative is that Michael Jordan couldn't beat the Pistons until the Pistons got old. So, again, this is one of the things that you hear in the GOAT debate. So, LeBron James fans will say anything to try and discredit Michael Jordan and prop up their guy. And I always talk about it. It's so interesting to me because I always say, if you being LeBron James or a LeBron James fan, and you're so adamant that he's the greatest of all time, why does his work not stand on its own, in that you need to constantly denigrate Michael Jordan and try to pull him down to prop LeBron up? If he's what they say he is, his work should stand on its own. But fine, let's talk about it. So they'll say anything to try to discredit MJ. Facts be damned. So the narrative is that Michael Jordan couldn't get through the Detroit Pistons, until they got old. But back then, like I mentioned earlier, there was an order of how things went in the conference in terms of teams kind of working their way up. And like we talked about, the Sixers, the Celtics, the Pistons, the Bulls, and then the Bulls were kind of, up there. Obviously, in the 2 years Michael Jordan was gone playing baseball, then you saw the Knicks get to the finals, and you saw the Magic get to the finals. Both of those years, they lost to both of those teams, lost to the Houston Rockets, who won back-to-back. Then Mike comes back, another three-peat, so on and so forth. But back then, there was an order of things, and you had to work your way up. You just didn't come in and, build a team and go to the finals. Cool. Now, back to this narrative with the Pistons. So I find this interesting because LeBron, when he left the Cleveland Cavs in 2010, he got beat by the Celtics. And those Celtics were Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Rajon Rondo, Kevin Garnett. And that team had an average age of 34 years old, which is kind of old in professional sports, right? Average age of 34 years old. So I guess we would say that Celtics team was old. And LeBron, he couldn't beat them, even though they were old. And he ran to Miami. He put his super team together. And then they go ahead, beat the Celtics, broke them up, and, made their 4 straight NBA Finals appearances and won 2 championships. Cool. No problem there. Great. But let's just keep in mind, Celtics average age when LeBron and the Heat beat them, 34 years old. So we would say that's old, right? Okay. So that said, MJ, again, the narrative from the LeBron people, couldn't beat the Pistons until they got old. What was the average age of the Detroit Pistons when Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls finally beat them? And let me remind you, those bad boy Pistons, Bill Laimbeer, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, John Sally, Dennis Rodman, Mark Edwards, all those guys. Vinny the Microwave Johnson, outstanding team, one of the better championship teams in history, one of the best defensive teams in history. Cool. So back to my question, what was the average age of those teams? What was the average age of the Detroit Pistons when Michael Jordan and his team got past them in 91? 29 years old, not even 30. So wait. The average age of the Detroit Pistons, the bad boy Pistons, when Michael Jordan and Chicago Bulls finally got over the hump and beat them in the Eastern Conference Finals, was 29 years old. So let me see. Let's do math to carry the 1, plus 2, 5 to. Wait a minute. 34 years old, which is the average age of the Boston Celtics when LeBron ran to Miami, joined up with his super team, and beat them in the Eastern Conference. 34, if I'm not mistaken, is older than 29. That's crazy. That's crazy. But yet the LeBron fans will tell you that Michael Jordan couldn't beat the Pistons till they get old. How does that work? How does that work? And here's something else to think about, right? let's just say, okay, let's forget about LeBron and the Celtics being average age of 34 and 34 being 5 years older than 29. Let's just say the LeBron fans are right, okay? Let's just say that. And Michael Jordan couldn't beat the Pistons till they got old. Here's the thing. On his second three-peat, right, Michael Jordan brought in John Sally and Dennis Rodman. So if those guys were old in 1991 and he brought those guys in like 1996 and 1997, well, how old were they then? They must have been real old, right? Wheelchairs and walkers. So how does that work? That doesn't make any sense. You see what I'm saying? Like, I did a show a couple days ago and I was talking about how LeBron has this magical power over people and he has this ability to turn people's brains to mush. You see how that works? His fans will say anything, no matter how nonsensical. Now, I guarantee you, when I post this show, people are going to talk about, oh, you hating on LeBron. When all I'm doing is just stating simple, irrefutable facts. And they are going to find some way to try and tell me that 29 is older than 34. I don't know how that's going to work, but I'm sure they will do it. I wouldn't put anything past them. But the fact is, I just debunked another fake narrative that Michael Jordan couldn't beat the Pistons until they got old. I mean, hey, it just, does that, it doesn't make any sense to me, but, it is what it is. It is what it is. All right. So, I guess I'm gonna leave it there. If anybody wants to call in, and I'm gonna give it a minute here. Anybody wants to call in and make any comments, really about anything NBA related, doesn't have to be about these topics. It'd be better if it was about these topics, but you can call in and make a comment. If not, I'm gonna go ahead and end the show for the night. And I want to say again, for those of you who tuned in, man, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Make sure you share the show. Make sure you're letting people know. Make sure you're clicking that like and that subscribe. And we're going to keep this thing going, man. I guarantee you this show is going to grow and it's just going to keep getting better and better. So, I guess I'm going to leave it there. And everybody have a great night. And I'll be back with you next episode. And I'm out. Peace.